There's a conversation happening all around you every single day. In the way someone holds a wine glass, the watch they choose not to wear, the school they casually mention, the way they decline something without ever explaining why. You can't hear it. Most people can't. And that's exactly the point. Old money doesn't broadcast. It transmits on a frequency that only certain people are tuned to receive. And if you've never been shown what to listen for, you will spend your entire life surrounded by signals you don't know how to read. Today, that changes. Here is the secret language of old money, decoded, signal by signal. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll never walk into a room the same way again. First, why does this language exist at all? Old money didn't develop its communication system by accident. It evolved over generations as a direct response to a very specific problem. How do you identify your own people without exposing yourself to everyone else? In aristocratic societies, the ability to signal status without stating it was a survival skill. You couldn't simply announce your wealth. That was vulgar, dangerous, and frankly unnecessary if everyone who mattered already knew. So instead, a system of signals developed, signals embedded in clothing, speech, manners, objects, and behavior, each one invisible to outsiders, perfectly legible to insiders. Think of it as the world's oldest members-only club. No bouncer, no velvet rope. Just a set of codes that you either know or you don't. And the brilliance of the system is that it is entirely self-policing. Anyone who doesn't know the codes immediately reveals themselves by not using them, or worse, by using them wrong. This is why new money so often feels uncomfortable around old money, even when the new money is wealthier. They have the resources, but not the vocabulary. They speak, but in the wrong language. What we're about to break down are the actual signals, the real ones, not the surface-level aesthetic trends you've seen on social media, the deep structure of how old money actually communicates who they are, what they value, and who they trust. Signal 1, the object language. Let's start with the most visible layer, objects, because old money uses objects as a language, and every item they choose or don't choose is a deliberate word in a sentence. Rule 1 of the object language, age over newness. New money buys new things, the latest model, the freshest drop, the most recent season. Old money buys things that last, and they keep them long after they could afford to replace them. The briefcase is scuffed at the corners. The watch belonged to a grandfather. The car is a decade old and immaculate. These are not signs of being unable to afford replacements. They are deliberate signals that say, I am not chasing trends. I am above them. Rule 2, monogram over logo. This is one of the most precise signals in the entire language, and almost nobody outside the circle notices it. Old money personalizes a monogrammed shirt, an initialed handkerchief, a signet ring with a family crest. These items carry identity, a specific named irreplaceable identity that cannot be purchased off a shelf. Compare this to a designer logo, which tells the world, this brand made this. A monogram says something entirely different. My family made this. Rule 3. Restraint is the signal. Here's the counterintuitive part. The absence of visible luxury is itself a luxury signal. Old money has known for generations that the people whose opinion actually matters can identify quality without branding. The weight of a fabric, the cut of a jacket, the leather of a shoe. These communicate to the people who know, while remaining completely invisible to the people who don't. Wearing a giant logo is essentially a confession. I am not sure you can tell I'm wealthy unless I show you the receipt. Old money never makes that confession. They don't need to. And the silence of their objects speaks louder than any logo ever could. The next signal is far less visible than clothing, but far more powerful. Signal 2, the speech code. The way old money speaks is a language within a language, and it operates on 3 levels simultaneously. Level 1, vocabulary precision without performance. Old money uses language precisely, not to impress, but because imprecision is considered a form of intellectual laziness. They use the correct word, not the most dramatic one. They say concerned, not devastated. They say I'd prefer not to, not that's literally the worst idea I've ever heard. The restraint is consistent, and it communicates control. There is also a specific vocabulary that functions as an access code, references to certain institutions, events, places, and surnames that immediately identify shared experience. Mentioning the right school, the right club, the right summer destination in passing, not boasting, just referencing, is a handshake in the secret language. The other person either knows, and the connection is made, or they don't, and they've revealed themselves accordingly. Level 2, what they don't say. This is where old money truly separates from every other communication style. Old money has a remarkable and very deliberate relationship with silence. They do not fill every gap in conversation. They do not explain themselves unprompted. They do not justify their decisions. When old money declines an invitation, they say, "I'm afraid I can't make it." Full stop. No excuse, no elaboration, no apology beyond the minimum required by courtesy. This restraint is intentional. It communicates that they do not require your approval, and it creates an asymmetry of information that consistently positions them as the more powerful party in any exchange. Level 3, the compliment that isn't. Old money has a subtle tradition of the comment that sounds neutral, but carries enormous weight within the code. To call something interesting is, in many old money contexts, a mild insult. To say that's very you can be devastating. These layered communications fly entirely over the heads of outsiders and land precisely where intended with insiders. Understanding this level of the language is like getting the encryption key. Once you see it, you hear it everywhere. Quick pause. If this is opening your eyes to something you've always sensed but never been able to name, do me a favor and subscribe. We decode old money lifestyle, wealth mindset, and the quiet systems behind generational wealth every single week. Most people stumble across this channel and immediately wish they'd found it sooner. You're already here. Hit subscribe and stay. Now, back to the language. Signal 3, the network. Signal, the most powerful layer of old money's secret language, isn't about objects or speech at all. It's about who you know and, more specifically, how you know them. Old money doesn't network. That concept, attending events to exchange business cards with strangers, is entirely foreign to the old money social architecture. What old money does instead is something far older and far more effective. It maintains a multi-generational web of relationships so dense and so deep that opportunity flows through it like water through a river, constantly, naturally, without effort. The language inside this network is the most exclusive of all. It communicates through shared history, shared institutions, and shared silence. When two old money individuals meet for the first time, the conversation begins long before they speak, through surnames, schools, clubs, and mutual connections that establish the entire context of the relationship in seconds. The signal of being within this network isn't something you can fake with money. You can buy a membership to the club. You cannot buy the decades of shared dinners, school friendships, and family histories that make the membership meaningful. Old money knows the difference and can identify an outsider with impeccable precision, not through any single signal, but through the accumulation of small tells. The handshake is slightly wrong. The pause before a surname is a fraction too long. The reference to a shared institution is accurate, but somehow hollow, lacking the specific lived detail that genuine membership carries. This is why old money is so difficult to enter from outside, even with extraordinary new wealth. You're not just trying to learn a language. You're trying to learn a language that has 40 years of shared history baked into every word. You can study the dictionary, but you're still reading, while everyone else is dreaming in it. The good news is that the principles underneath this network, investing in relationships early, generously, and with no expectation of immediate return, are available to anyone willing to play the long game. Signal 4, the Behavioral Code, old. Money communicates through behavior constantly, and the signals are so subtle that most people file them under good manners, without ever understanding why they work the way they do. Composure as a status signal. Old money does not visibly react to disruption. The flight is canceled. Fine. The deal falls through. Noted. The dinner reservation is lost. No matter. This composure isn't performed calmness. It comes from a deep security that is built, generationally, by knowing that your position in the world doesn't hinge on any single outcome. The composure itself communicates, I have enough of everything that this particular problem is simply not significant. In a social setting, this is extraordinarily powerful. The calmest person in any room shapes the energy of everyone around them. Old money knows this instinctively. It is trained into every generation. Punctuality without urgency. Old money is precise about time, not because they are anxious about it, but because they respect it as a finite and valuable resource, both theirs and others. They arrive exactly when expected, rarely early and never late. The person who arrives breathlessly late is communicating that other things in their life have priority over this appointment. Old money never communicates that, and never allows others to communicate it toward them either. Service without ceremony. One of the most telling signals in old money behavior is how they interact with people who serve them. Not with excessive performance of gratitude, which can itself be a form of showing off, but with quiet, consistent, genuine courtesy. They know the names of staff. They remember details from previous interactions. They tip without making it visible. These are signals of someone deeply comfortable in their social position. Someone who has nothing to prove by performing condescension, and nothing to gain by performing exaggerated generosity. These behavioral signals are arguably the hardest to learn and the hardest to fake, because they require genuine values, not just surface adjustment. Signal 5, the taste code. Taste in old money is a complete communication system, and it works on a principle that is almost perfectly opposite to the consumer culture most of us were raised in. Old money taste is edited, not accumulated. The new money instinct is to fill space with objects, with options, with visible abundance. More rooms, more cars, more collections, more everything. Old money edits ruthlessly. The home has fewer objects, but every object has a story and a provenance. The wardrobe has fewer pieces, but every piece is immaculate and exactly right. This editing communicates something profound. I know what I want, and I don't need more than that. It signals confidence that is simply unavailable to anyone who is still trying to fill a void with possessions. The taste code also operates in cultural knowledge: art, literature, music, architecture, wine, food. Old money doesn't show off cultural knowledge. They simply have it, and it surfaces naturally in conversation. The reference to an artist, the observation about a building's period, the quiet choice at a restaurant, these are all words in the taste language. And here's the key. The taste code isn't about expensive things. It's about the right things, correctly understood. You can have old money taste with very modest means, because old money taste is fundamentally about depth of knowledge and clarity of preference, not price point. This is perhaps the most democratic element of the entire old money language. And it's why the most interesting people in old money circles are often not the wealthiest. They are the most cultivated. The wealth is assumed. The taste is the thing people actually talk about. How to learn the language so? You've now seen the language, the object code, the speech code, the network code, the behavior code, the taste code. The question is, can you learn it? Yes, but not the way most people try. Most people try to learn the old money language by copying the surface, buying the right brands, using the right vocabulary, affecting the right manners. And it always shows. Because the language isn't really about the signals themselves, it's about the values that generate the signals naturally. When you genuinely don't need to prove anything, your objects stop shouting. When you genuinely feel secure in any room, your composure becomes effortless. When you've genuinely invested in relationships over decades, your network opens doors without you asking. When you've genuinely developed taste through curiosity and study, your cultural knowledge surfaces without performance. This is why old money can't be purchased, but it can be cultivated. Start with one thing, not the wardrobe, not the vocabulary. Start with the long game. Identify 3 relationships in your life worth investing in more deeply, without any expectation of return, and invest in them this month, then next month, then the month after. Compound that for 5 years. Then work on composure. In the next difficult moment, when something goes wrong in public, notice your instinct to react and choose not to. Just once, then again, then again. Then start editing. One drawer, one shelf, one area of your wardrobe. Ask, does this tell the story I want to tell, or does it fill a gap? Old money's secret language is learnable, but it's learned through becoming a different kind of person, not through acquiring a different kind of stuff. And that's a longer, harder, more interesting journey than any shopping list can take you on. So here's what the secret language of old money actually is, at its core. It's the external expression of a set of internal values: security, patience, depth, restraint, and the long view that most of the world has been trained to consider unnecessary. The signals aren't arbitrary. They are the natural output of people who have genuinely internalized those values across generations. And once you understand that, 2 things happen. First, you start seeing the language everywhere. Second, you start asking yourself which words of your own behavior are sending signals you didn't intend. That's the real power of learning this language, not to imitate old money, but to understand what your own signals are saying about you right now, without you knowing it. If this opens something up for you, subscribe, because we go deeper every week. And drop a comment. Which signal hit hardest for you? I read every one. See you in the next one.